Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Small Biz Matters, the half-hour program each week where you can work on your business rather than in it. Now, we're very excited today. We've got a special guest, Jacqueline Boyd, professional business and personal brand strategist and PR consultant at Bold Connections. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Look, it's going to be an extremely useful show, I feel, for small business. And the reason why I say that is because I literally have no idea about PR. Even though I run my own business, all I know about it is that it stands for public relations. Now, I've done my media release and I think to myself, right, okay, that's it. I've covered the PR box. But as you will find out from today's show, there's a lot more to cover with PR than simply writing a media release to announce to the world that you're out there. And we're going to empower our listeners to utilise PR to help grow their business and help understand why it's so important as well, big and small. The great thing about Jacqueline today, you've got experience both working in corporate and small-sized businesses, and I understand that your clients now are all different shapes and sizes.
That's correct, they are. So I've got clients right through from solopreneurs, mumpreneurs, people who just have an idea to go into business, right through to big business.
Excellent. And I guess that's really a really good point to start your PR is when you're sort of starting out. You can give it some really good strategy and some thought right from the beginning. And if you engage, as we talk about on the show all the time, engage, outsource, get the experts to help you. Don't try and do it all yourself. Understand where your shortcomings are as a business owner and stick to your strengths. And that's where someone like you can help.
Absolutely, because PR is essential. Yet it scares the bejeebers off most people. Petrifies them. They don't know what to do. And they're scared to talk to a journalist. And they're worried about what's going to happen. And it falls into the I don't know, so I'll bury my head in the sand corner. Tell
me a little bit about Bold Connections. You've been working in the industry for about 18 years. But just tell me about how you service your clients.
Sure. So Bold Connections is we specialise in business and personal brand strategy, marketing and PR. And we work directly with our clients. So we can work in them in 5 different ways. We can either create their brand strategies, business and personal brand strategy for them. So in a nutshell, what that means is not only do we organise and sort out the marketing of businesses, but we sort out the marketing of people and how you layer those together to actually get an exponentially quicker result in your marketing uptake.
So it works with marketing?
Works with marketing.
Yeah.
So you have a marketing plan for a business and a marketing plan for a person, and you push them together. The best example is Richard Branson.
Right.
He has a marketing plan for himself as well as every company that's under him. That's what we do.
Yeah, because he is an entity unto himself. He's not just the head of a company.
Exactly.
That's right.
But the biggest, while it works for him, it has fantastic success for small business owners, because when you can put your brand, your personality and what you stand for behind your business. Now, I'm not saying you have to have, mugshots of your face and use your name as the name of your company. But when people can relate to that is when you have the uptake faster. So we do that. We help people create their marketing plans. We look after their marketing for them, online and offline. It's not all just about social media these days, as much as it's the buzzword. Offline marketing is still very, very successful for a lot of businesses. And then we look after PR campaigns. And then we also run events and workshops. So people can come in and out of our business at any point. They don't have to do all 5. Every single part is almost like a little gift off the shelf. You just pick and choose and you plug us in where you need us.
I think that's a really good way to think about how to outsource certain things within your business. You don't necessarily need to engage with someone who's going to be holding your hand for the next 5 years. They're not coming aboard as an employee. What they're providing you is things that you can pick and choose. So almost itemised things that become part of a whole strategy overall, but you don't necessarily have to say, right, for the next 5 years, I'm going to be engaging with a PR consultancy company like Bold Connections, and they're going to be next to me for the next 5. No, basically you can pick and choose which of those strategies work for you. And engage with an expert. And I do talk about that a lot. I talk about outsourcing with things like PR. Obviously, me with only knowing 1 or 2 items, I'm very excited about the show today to find out more. So let's talk about the importance of PR for small business and just how that differs from sales and marketing. I know that you said that it does intertwine, but I just wanted to distinguish one from the other just to help people understand the concept, I guess, for those people out there who don't understand. So in researching for this interview, I came across a really simple article which stated, when done right, public relations is about much more than just getting ink. Smart public relations is about sharing impactful stories that lead to meaningful connections and opportunities. It's about clearly understanding what you and your business outcomes, what you want your outcomes to be, and using communications to help you get there. So, Jacqueline, can you please discuss this definition, whether or not you may or may not agree with it, and just so that we're on the same page, just explain to us exactly what PR is.
Exactly. So PR is the the short form of saying public relations, and what that means is getting your message out to the public, but in doing that through the media. So we're talking blog sites, small and big professional bloggers. Never ever discount the small guy. We all started small. Okay, you never know who they know.
Mm-hmm.
Print publications including magazines, newspapers, journals, right through to TV. It might be the Today Show, Sunrise, news articles, web TV channels. Anywhere there is a media portal and radio, putting out information. It's getting their attention to showcase you and your business. But just talking about something like, oh, by the way, we employed a new staff member is not interesting to the media. You need to have an angle, a story. And this is where a lot of people, when they first come to us, are really confused and they don't understand what to do. Every business has stories in it. The skill is that I know how to find those stories really, really quickly. A lot of people can't see the wood for the trees. And you have to pitch a story idea to a journalist. So you might have written one press release and you think you can send that to every journalist or put it into a media portal. Now, a media portal is the electronic media data rooms where the journalists get the press releases from.
This is where they just get the content for their articles, isn't it? I've heard about these media portals where people just spit out information and then they just grab them and then they write the articles based on their sort of cut and paste bits and pieces.
Sometimes they do that and other times they'll ring you.
The good ones will ring you.
It depends on the time frame.
Of course, yes.
Sometimes the editor will say to a journalist, you've got 25 minutes, I need 250 words on something, go for it. And they just go into a portal room and they look for content that they can quickly create something from. Because if you've done your job in a press release, they can get enough information to write something short and sharp from it.
I see.
Other times, if they're wanting to turn it into something larger, I'm currently working with Sunday Life. They're writing an article about me. And we've been going back and forth. So there's been interviews and lots of questions, and it's not always by phone, sometimes it's via email. But everything is different. So you can't expect to put out one press release and get the attention of everybody.
Right.
The other thing is that you can't continually send the same press release. It needs to be different every single time. You actually might be talking about the same thing, but you need to talk about it maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ways each time. And you need to look at what is relevant for the publication that you're trying to attract the attention of.
Yes.
You might have, actually one of my clients, Changemates, is this great sort of portable change room. You whip it on, it goes around your body and you can literally strip off naked at the beach or at the swimming pool and put your clothes back on and nobody sees a thing.
What a great idea.
It's fantastic. It's a brilliant, brand new invention. We've just done the PR on it in the last 2 weeks for them. And, it's coming into summer. And, what we would send out as a standard press release, it's here, it's whiz bang, it's fantastic. Great. But if we're trying to attract the attention of, say, something like Essential Baby, practical parenting magazines, guides for, great things to buy for Christmas gifts.
It's going to be written slightly differently.
You have to write it differently. So we had different press releases going out, especially targeted to it's great for kids.
Yes.
And the fact that most public swimming pools now won't let you take a school-aged child into the opposite gender's change room.
Yeah, isn't that stupid? I know, that's just ridiculous.
But it's there. So
but
what
this
do all the
solves
mums
the
and dads
problem.
do? This solves the problem. You can whip this around your kid. It's got little holes where you can completely change them without anybody seeing a bit of their body, without, heaven forbid, someone slightly perverted peering on your child. And you can go and mums and dads can have a really safe way to change their kids. But that conversation is very different to the conversation about going to the beach as a surfer and stripping off your board shorts and getting dressed, putting on your trousers and putting on your shirt and tie when you get back to the car. Yeah,
if you're a tradie and you want to get back into work again. Yeah, okay. That all makes sense. You do have to sort of bring a different slant to it and keep it moving in a different way. I do like that's quite interesting.
It does, and the whole part about it is that you're looking for media coverage, no matter how small or large, to build your credibility.
And is that the difference that a good PR strategy can make to small business?
Absolutely. So we're smart and intelligent as people. Our brains have gotten very smart to working out what an ad is. And sales is just like advertising, but it's direct. It's a different process. It's more of a face-to-face process, or it can be online. but there's a definite selling proposition to it.
Right.
Marketing is promoting your products and services and getting them recognised and known by as many people as possible, with the intention that those that like it will buy it.
Right.
PR,
And that leads to the sale.
That leads to the sale.
Right. Okay.
Or can lead into that sales process.
Yes.
PR is about recognition and credibility and having other people talk about you, which heightens the awareness, can heighten your coverage. If you get coverage on the Today Show, you're seen nationally by, over 50,000 people.
And
I
that's
hate
where
to think how many hundreds of thousands actually.
And then that's how it overlaps with your marketing strategy.
That's how it
But
overlaps.
you do need to think of it separately, don't you, as a small business?
You need to think of it separately from the fact of you have to do it. It's no different to if you have social media as part of your strategy, as well as networking, as well as perhaps you've got sign writing on your car and a sign out the front of your building.
Yes.
But PR must be included as a monthly activity in your marketing plan for the best success. You won't get great success with one single press release.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, we would need to walk past something, half a dozen times before we realise it's there and take action. It's the same with PR. So when you're submitting press releases, over time, journalists will go, oh, I've seen a few things from them now. I'll actually stop and bother to read what they're saying, because you're not just almost like a one-hit wonder. If you're religiously, and regularly what we call seeding the media, pitching stories to them on a regular basis, different ideas, their brain starts to think you're a known person to them,
mm-hmm.
and it recognises you,
mm-hmm.
and so they want to start reading what you're sending through.
And so is that where networking fits in? I'm just trying to think of a specific thing that you can do for PR that isn't the obvious sort of media release. Is networking a form of PR?
Not for media coverage.
Okay.
So it's a form of
brand recognition
and personal brand recognition for an individual.
Yes.
Because you're going out there to build relationships.
Yes.
It's all about relationship building.
Uh-huh.
The sending of the press releases is the very first step of relationship building with a journalist.
Okay, so it is quite specific.
It is very specific.
Give me just thinking about, I always use my example of my plumbers. My regular listeners will know that I have this magical small business in my head, which is a plumber. Tell me how, for example, how a plumber what sort of an initial PR strategy could a plumber have?
Sure. A plumber could have a strategy around block drains, or there's a new plumbing tool on the market that saves time for unclogging something.
Yes.
Or a new toilet system, or a way to put a toilet bowl without having to excavate and plumb. I did happen to see this in an airline magazine. You could put a spare toilet sort of under the stairs or in the laundry, and you didn't have to have traditional plumbing for it to go out.
Okay.
So there's lots of different ways. It could be about the plumber who wins an award.
Yes.
Perhaps they've won a business award, or they've got really great customer satisfaction, and they've received a whole lot of testimonials from clients, where you could turn that into something.
Yeah.
So you need to find the stories. It could be about a plumber that's really great with high-rise buildings.
Mm.
It would depend on the individual plumber. So you need to find where the stories lay within their individual business and still put them out. They don't have to have won the Nobel Peace Prize or, have built the world's first upside-down toilet.
Right.
But the everyday mundane,
yeah,
what we would say the everyday mundane in everybody's business can have a story-worthy aspect to it.
Here's an idea. I mean, we're thinking about the fact that Hornsby and Asquith at the moment is going through some major undergoing huge changes. All of the Pacific highways turning into medium density housing. So a plumber could position themselves through good customer service as the plumber that you call in the Asquith area, and that way making a story out of that would mean that they could be the experts in medium density housing.
Exactly.
And then it becomes topical and becomes relevant to what's going on in the journalism world today, and for local newspapers.
Because we would bring in comments from his client that was living in that medium density. And so then you can pitch the idea to a journalist that, well, there's all this medium density housing, and
who's there to solve it? Who's there to fix these plumbing issues?
People that are helping them. Or if the plumbing issue is something that's common, that's the pitch. but it happens to come from the plumber who gets his name and like one sentence added in.
Yes.
And that plumber's still featured in that story.
And local newspapers love stories about local businesses. Don't forget that. And I think a really good starting point for people around the Hornsby, Ku-ring-gai area might just be, hey, actually read your local paper, because you might find that there's more stories in there about small business that you think. And the thing that really annoys me, and I'm going to have a go at the Hornsby Advocate now, because I am sick of opening the Hornsby Advocate and seeing stories that they've pulled out of other News Limited papers about other businesses in Balmain. There are hundreds and thousands of businesses in Hornsby, Ku-ring-gai. Why not start showcasing some of those small businesses? And this is a way that, you know, perhaps I as Small Biz Matters and we could all get together as businesses and start trying to say, well, let's get the profile of local business up and running. There's more small businesses here than many other places in New South Wales in terms of density. So I guess that's, look, I'm getting all excited about PR, Jacqueline. Listen, I'm getting excited.
Well, there is a way to solve that. Perhaps the Hornsby Advocate isn't receiving press releases from the local small business.
Good point.
If they're pulling content from other News Limited papers, that means that as business owners, you should be reading what's going on in mainstream newspapers and putting your spin on that into a press release.
Is it simple enough to just say that it's free advertising, PR?
PR, look, there's still time involved.
Yeah, we should never negate the time factor.
The time. You can always make more money, but you can't get back more time.
Ooh,
so
I like that.
If you know how to write a press release and you're not writing the story, writing a press release is very specific. It's written in a very, very scientific way for a journalist. They want it to receive it in a particular way. So if you know how to write it yourself. If not, have somebody else write it for you. My team can do that for you. We have that product that's there that we'll just write the press release and hand it to you for you to do whatever you want with, if that's what you need, because you don't know how to do it. So it has to be specific in that reason, in that way. So whether or not you're paying somebody or you're spending the time, there's still a financial cost, but the reward can be greater than what you can afford to pay for.
Yes, that's right.
And that's the trade-off. And you can't buy that level of credibility. In my local newspaper, to buy a very small ad that's about 1/2 inch by 1.5 inches high, so, you know, not much bigger than 2 fingers put together, it's $450 per edition, one print run.
You'll get more than that if you get a decent story picked up from your PR.
Absolutely. Like if you had to buy a 1/2 page article in a magazine or a publication, it's going to cost you more than $450 to advertise. And our brains still trigger that it's an ad and they switch off and don't read them. But when it's an article written by somebody else about you or your business, our brains read it. To
because
them,
it's
a story. It's personable.
Yeah.
And someone has something to educate me on that's not an ad. Our brains have become very, very clever at switching off to everything that's an ad. So you actually almost can't buy that
and you
coverage.
cut through that. You cut through that
You
blank
do.
and that wall that people have built.
And that's where the power of PR comes in.
Wonderful. Now we're going to take a short break and listen to a little bit of tunes. After we come back, we're going to talk about how to build a basic PR strategy. So we've touched a little bit on that. We might just go a little bit more into it. Where do you start? How do you delve into it? So we'll just have a quick tune and then we'll be right back with Small Biz Matters. Well, welcome back to the show, everyone. We're talking to Jacqueline Bold from Bold Connections, if you've just tuned in, and we're talking about PR and its importance for small biz. And we, as you know, Small Biz Matters covers all issues to do with small business, and I think PR is something we haven't touched on yet. It is a very important aspect. And just before the break, we were talking a little bit about how it does differ and overlap with your marketing strategy and the different ways that you can approach it. Also, the fact that PR is advertising that you just can't buy. I like that expression, actually, what you mentioned, Jacqueline, because it cuts through that brick wall that we've all built up where we switch off for the advertising, and we want to read about people, we want to read about businesses, and everybody loves to support small businesses and local businesses, and that's, again, what I'm always talking about with relation to local newspapers and them being supportive as well. So thinking about your business for yourselves now, once you put yourselves in that position of being a small business owner, and we're going to try and think through a really basic PR plan. So what exactly is PR and how would you say it's delivered?
Okay, so PR is, from a business owner's perspective, the ability to get your business featured in the media. Blogs, internet, websites, newspapers, magazines, TV, radio, whatever the portal. So the first thing you need to think about is, why do you want PR coverage? What stories have you got to share?
Mm-hmm.
So sit down and write a list of things that you think might be interesting
Ask
to the
your
media.
friends. Ask your friends what is interesting about your business. Because, again, when we're in our business, we can't think about our own business. We can't think outside the dots. Ask other people around you. So what makes me different? What makes me interesting?
If you want to really put it out there, ask the question on Facebook.
Ooh.
People are honest on Facebook. And you'll get responses from people you don't even know are following your business on Facebook.
True.
So you are more likely to get a very honest answer than something that a friend thinks you want to hear.
True. True.
Because there is a difference there. Sometimes they tell us what they think we want to hear.
Ask a stranger, get an honest answer.
Exactly. So you need to work out what you want to stand for, what stories you have to share, or what product you're trying to promote.
Yes.
Or service, what type of coverage you want to get. Specifically, are there specific publications that you really want to be in? At the moment, my son, he's 12. He's a Amazon #1 best-selling author. He's been on the Today Show. He's in national newspapers in Australia.
Gorgeous.
Well, he got his first American journalist interview last week.
Wow.
That came off a small Australian blog site interview that he did. And now they're helping him because his goal is he wants to be on the Ellen DeGeneres show.
As you do.
As you do.
Isn't that everyone's
Just because
goal?
that's what a 12-year-old wants to give his mother to do over Christmas. But so this is now a challenge for him to teach him what to do. So my theory is that if I can teach a 12-year-old how to do this, you can do it as a grown adult. You move past the fear of, oh my God, I have to speak to somebody, and how are they going to do it, and just go for it. If you know that you want to be featured in the media because you have a great business or a great product, and you are sick of the guy down the road getting all the work, but you do as good or a better job as him, just go for it.
Think about PR.
After you've worked out those other things, you literally have to pull up your socks and say, right, let's go.
Excellent. So would you agree that PR is the same as telling a story and personalising you and your business? That's really what you want to do as a starting point, isn't it?
A little bit, but often great PR is literally just a sentence. You've given one comment on a topic and your name and your company is listed. That's it. It can be that simple. So a journalist might be asking for comments and information on vaccination. It's always very topical. They always get lots of responses.
Yes.
And so, you might be a doctor who's seeing a lot of kids and you respond saying, yes, happy to have a chat. And they literally just put in one line, Dr. whoever, immunises 450 kids a year with whatever.
That's a type of PR.
That's a type of PR. Just the fact that you're mentioned positions you as the expert.
That's right. And that's what this is all about, positioning yourself as the expert.
And PR is a strategy game. So when you write your business plan, it's a strategy. When you write your marketing plan, it's a strategy. You have your brand strategy for yourself and your business. PR is just more strategy. It's all about getting you where you want.
And the PR aspect is the dealing with the media
Yes.
and the personal branding in a way.
Yes, it's because whilst they may mention, the company name can be mentioned, they're getting quotes off an individual. Or sometimes they'll ask your permission to write in the first person as you, and you get to sign off on it. And they've written a whole article as if you've written it, and you've just proofread it, made a couple of changes. If you get that kind of coverage, that's brilliant. But something people need to be very aware of with PR is once you submit your press release, it's out of your control.
Right.
So an article may not be written the way you really hoped it to be. But if you don't do it because that's what you're scared of, you're missing out on more benefits than the possibility of that happening.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty bad world if somebody out there grabs hold of a small business press releases and excuses. I mean, that's a really bored journalist out there if they're going to be mean.
It does happen. I've been part of them personally, and this is what I do, where you give the interview and you give the content, but what they write around it is not fabulous.
Yeah.
Or, perhaps it could be seen multiple ways, or they drop off half the sentence and the meaning's gone.
Well, they had a different intention in the first place and you're just fitting in with what they wanted to do as their end result.
There's lots of different reasons why. So you do have to be aware that once you put it out there, anything can happen with it, but that's no different to social media.
Exactly.
And people sharing it, or someone going onto social media having a whinge about your business if they didn't like the colour scheme of the carpet when they walked in the front door.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, yeah, you do have to put yourself out there no matter what when it comes to small business anyway.
But the wins are far, far greater. That is a very small possibility of that happening, but people need to be aware it can happen. But remember that the majority of the time, the journalist is so excited to get your press release and have somebody to speak to because They have to find newsworthy content every single day.
So make it different, make it interesting. I think that's that first point that you've got to really think about. It's a press release is not just about your business and what you do. You have to find a point of difference, something that makes you unique amongst what you do.
Absolutely.
Or different, and it could just be as simple as, oh my goodness, I've got all these fabulous testimonials from my very excited clients, and that can be a nice way to blow your own trumpet, but it's, is it going to get picked up by local media? Maybe, maybe not. Just depends on the news cycle and a whole lot of other things.
The news cycle dictates everything.
If there's a tornado going through the centre of Hornsby, which we had a few months ago, that's going to wipe everything else off the face of
Absolutely.
the paper.
If something happens in the government, every other news article can get bumped.
Exactly.
I was waiting to be interviewed on the Today Show the morning of the terror raids a couple of months ago. And we're standing there and they're saying, we're not sure what time you're going to be on or if you're going to be on now today. No dramas. I got up at 3 a.m. and I drove all the way there. You take every opportunity.
You do. That's an important thing about PR. Anything that comes up, you grab it and you just take it as an opportunity to advertise.
You take the opportunity, but then you assess it. So you take a look at everything that comes in. You don't have to accept everything.
Okay. That's when we all get so big that the PR's just throwing itself at us.
If something is really not right for your brand, don't do it.
Okay. Can you give me an example of something for our plumber which wouldn't be right? A competitive debate with another plumber, perhaps.
No, that could be quite good if done the right way. But there could be a publication. If you're if you believe in vaccination, so we talked about this before, and there's a blog site or a magazine that wants to do an article on anti-vaccination, it's not going to be great because you're talking in a publication that's not for your prime clients.
You don't want to be positioning yourself there.
You don't want to put yourself in territory that could rock your stability of your business.
That's right. So a couple of the points I'm getting out of this is very important to make yourself relevant, very important to position yourself where you want to be positioned, so being careful to pick and choose which elements you do want, and making it relevant not only to what you think is interesting about your business, but making it relevant to each point that you're trying to release this media to. So there's not much point in writing to your local community radio station in the same way you would if you're writing to a newspaper, because the way it's going to be covered is going to be completely different.
Absolutely. And then the best time to start your PR is before your business starts.
Oh gosh, there's so many boxes to tick when you're a startup. That's a big one.
So it's never too early is my point. If you're already in business, you need to put this in now. And it doesn't have to be some big, hairy, audacious, scary thing. Either, go and do a PR course, get someone like myself to write them or do the whole lot for you. Find what you need help with and start it. Or just have a go. But my number one tip is when you email a journalist, do not put media release in the subject line. They will just hit delete.
Really?
It will not get read.
Okay, so what do you put in there? Is that part of the strategy, is thinking about what you put in the actual subject line of the email?
The first 100 words of your press release make or break the whole lot.
Okay. So they're the most important ones in what you need to think about.
Your heading in your first paragraph determines whether or not the rest
gets
read or even picked up.
You don't put media release on the heading?
Not in the heading.
No, okay.
This is where I was saying there's a very particular way the journalists want to receive their press releases, but if you are emailing them to journalists, which a lot of people do, they sit there going, I'll send to this publication, I'll send to that.
It's easy, it's fast.
And in the subject line of the email, you write media release, it'll get deleted without being read.
Right, excellent.
They will not accept it.
Good tips. That's very interesting. Well, we're going to have a quick short break, and then when we come back, we're going to think of some ideas out of the box, a bit left field with some PR ideas, which would work for small business. We're here with Jacqueline Bold from Bold Connections, and you're with Small Biz Matters. And welcome back to the show, everyone. Thank you for continuing to listen to our show. We're here with Jacqueline Bold from Bold Connections, our special guest today, talking about PR for small businesses. Not something we necessarily think about. We bandy around the word marketing. We know about brand. We know about our logo. But it is an important part of your overall strategy when it comes to growing your business and advertising your business and starting up your business.
Absolutely.
Something you mentioned before. We have to think about this as we're starting up. And I think when you first start up, you might go, okay, how much does it cost to advertise in the local paper? How much does it cost to print a flyer? And I think PR is one of those things you need to consider. It's probably a little bit out of the box for what small businesses think about, unless they've got a really fabulous, quirky idea. So How do you think of these quirky ideas? Are it a bit left field, a bit out of the ordinary, something that's going to grab a journalist's attention? How do you do it?
Well, I think you never know what a journalist is thinking. So, even if you had one-on-one with a journalist and you had direct access to a journalist like 6 times over 6 months,
wow,
it might take to the 6th month until you've given them something that they want, something that rocks their world. Because you're dealing with individuals, individual thought patterns, individual goals. But you just have to keep trying. That's the whole idea. And you need to be relevant and you need to be different. But in the same token, you can talk about something very mundane in a different way. I call it the toilet paper theory. By about the age of 3, we all know what to do with it, how to use it, and what it is. Now it's toilet paper. But the person who talks the most about toilet paper wins in business land. And that's why Kleenex is constantly talking about 3-ply softness, quilted, good for your bum, whatever else it is, right? And there's always coverage, and Kleenex is, mentioned in PR all the time, and, we all know it, right? So this is where I say, look to what you do every day and find the extraordinary in your ordinary. Find what's different, or even if it's not different, just talk about it to the media, because perhaps no one else is. But there's a way that the journalist can see that it can be newsworthy with something else they're doing.
That's right. So just being constantly top of mind, constantly talking to
top
them.
of mind.
How do you talk to them, though?
You have to submit press releases. That's how you talk to them.
And if you were a small business and you were doing something quite, I don't want to say banal, but something quite common, such as plumbing.
Yeah.
How do you get under their skin? Is it just rewriting the same press release in another way, but it just happens to be the timing is right? How do you get under their skin and get in front of them? You could try that,
or you take a completely different angle, or you sort of, you plan it out so that they're in steps and perhaps one leads on from the next, but they can still work independently of each other as a press release. Over time, as you get media coverage, you'll build relationships with those journalists that you can send direct to them. You could pick up the phone and ring them. But that does take time. You're not going to get them answering your phone and agreeing to do something on the very first ring.
And you have to be passionate. You have to be passionate about what you do, I think. Journalists love to engage with small businesses that really care about what they're doing and feel like they're making a difference. You're not newsworthy if you're just another dude who runs a plumbing company. You've got to be out there, you've got to be interesting, maybe because you've lived in the area for 30 years, maybe because your dad was a plumber, maybe because you specialise in medium density housing and it's topical right now. So I guess you just need to be constantly in there and are you building a relationship with this journalist slowly over time?
You are slowly over time. So no different to going to a networking event and seeing the same people on a regular basis. And we all know that to get traction out of networking events, you've got to go repeatedly,
yes.
On a regular basis. It's exactly the same with PR, and that's how you're doing it with a journalist who happens to be sitting in their office, being told what to do by their editor or being asked for content, sometimes at a moment's notice. It's the same process.
Maybe you are that content that comes at a moment's notice.
Sometimes it's all about, you might have the best content in the whole world.
Yep.
And it's just not right for their publications right then.
Tell me about some really funky, out there, out of the ordinary, may not be applicable to our plumbing business that we're using as our example again, but tell me about some really funky guerrilla warfare tactics with PR that you've done out there, which is really interesting.
Okay, so the best, one of the tips I can give you is just sending your press release direct or to the media portal doesn't just work. When you send it to the portal, you can't follow up. But if you're sending press releases direct, you have to follow up. Did you get it? You're not going to push them for a story at that point. You're just going to check they got it. If you don't get it, may I have your email address? And try and suction out more contact details and journalist names as you go to find where to put it.
Write down who you've spoken to. That's a big one.
Exactly. So you keep detailed records and you start building your own media list.
Do you know that's how I got this show? Is because I had my little launch for my business for Boyd Office Management Services. Proud supporter of Triple H. I have to say that every time I'm on the show.
Wonderful.
But I had my launch night. It went really well. Had a press release and I sent it all out. And some people reported on it, some people didn't. But I actually rang them all up, and I rang the station manager at Triple H and said, "Did you get it?" And actually, she said no. So I resent it. And then I rang her again. Did you get it? And then she was interested, and that's how I got my sort of a little spiel. So even the smallest of things, just follow up. Very important.
Absolutely. So there's so many different ways. And a lot of people are scared to ring the journalist and follow up. And I want to tell you, don't be scared. They're just people, just like you and I, right? They're not big, scary monsters. They are usually really, really grateful. If you've got great content, they're usually lovely. but do not ring them between 2 and 4. It's deadline pretty much every day. You won't get a journalist, and they'll hang up on you and they'll be a bit gruff because they're usually under the pump at that point.
Okay. 10 o'clock after they've had their morning coffee?
Look, pretty much any other time, but you try to avoid them between 2 and 4 because for most publications, and different publications will have different days.
Yes.
But that seems to be big deadline time for the majority of journalists in Australia.
Good tip.
And be aware of what state you're in if you've got time differences.
Oh, good point. Yes.
So there are lots of different ways to do things, but you have to follow up. For guerrilla tactics, piggyback on events that are happening. Okay, so for a plumber, if there's some big Reese plumbing convention, piggyback something onto it that they can comment on. If you see an article that's already in the news or something that was breaking news or written about in Daily Telegraph or The Australian, and you can put a different slant on it, get it out there.
So you could write into the editorial.
You could write into the editorial, but you could put a press release out to blanket the journalist that you are wanting to contact with your take on whatever that situation is. So
a follow-on. So if they want to get a little bit of traction for their own media coverage, then they can keep it going, keep the conversation going. Is,
the other aspect or another solution to something. This works really well for people in the medical and psychology. If there's been some big world catastrophe, a lot of psychologists can go on and talk about, there's stress or post-traumatic stress syndrome, all different things that they can relate back to an event that happened, be it a global event or something local, yet they still get their mugshot on TV.
So this is a good way you've got to keep a finger on the pulse with what's going on in your local media.
You do, and not just local.
No, I've got to stop talking just local. Think bigger. Think bigger.
Think big. I have a saying in Bold Connections where we get our clients to dream one size bigger. Because we all get scared of, but what if it actually happens?
Yeah. What if I actually explode? How am I going to deal with that? Yeah.
So dream one size bigger, and don't just think about being, was it the Hornsby Advocate?
Yes.
Okay. Why not the Daily Telegraph? Why not the Sydney Morning Herald? If we get you the Sydney Morning Herald, it's often very easy then to get you in the Age of Melbourne.
Yes, of course.
And then if we've done that, why not piggyback that and try and get some great blog sites so that you've got some SEO traction happening from your PR campaigns.
Right.
The biggest thing that then happens is that you need to put out in the media or as seen in on your website, because the minute you are featured in one place, you have credibility you can't buy.
Right.
PR is the way that you buy that.
So it's like in where you see hairstylists or fashion boutiques, they've got the as seen in, or the cafes, local cafes that have got as seen in, as featured in, and that's another way that they can use that in part of their marketing strategy.
Absolutely. So if you are then going out to get more work, and we all know that a website is the online brochure these days, people will stalk you on your website and work out whether they want to ring you to even come in and give a quote or sit down and talk about business or ring you. If they can see that you've got credibility because a journalist has spoken about you, if you have that and your competition doesn't, all of a sudden your credibility is raised above theirs and you are more likely to get the phone calls and the jobs.
How do you suggest a small business would advertise piggyback off the fact that they've been in the local paper, for instance? Should they definitely have a media section to their website?
Definitely need to have an as seen in or in the media on their website.
Yep.
And then I highly recommend that on their websites they have a media kit, which journalists can get at. That's for the journalist. To get access to images and a whole lot of things. It's very different from as seen in.
Yes.
But definitely have that. And then you share that through all your social media. You put it in your newsletters. You might send, if you got coverage on the Today Show, you might send a postcard out saying, did you see us on TV, to your database, your clients. Use it to get repeat business and new business.
And
that's
positioning.
What it's there for. And it's all about positioning and keeping front of mind in a very competitive marketplace in every industry.
That's right. Look, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for talking to us today, Jacqueline. So we've talked quite a deal about a good deal about what it means to have a good PR strategy, when you need to implement it, what's the difference between PR and marketing and the way that they overlap with one another. If you have missed the show today, the blog will be available and the podcast will be available on the Breakfast Date Facebook page in the next couple of days, and also on the Boyd Office Management Services website. That's www.boydofficemanagement.com.au. Just go to the blogs and podcast page and click on the link. So thank you so much for being on the show today, Jacqueline.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And hopefully we'll have you on the show again, and maybe we can talk about PR once you've grown so big, you've outgrown your current size business and you need to think about even bigger growth?
Oh, that's actually right now. We're looking for a new office.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, anytime. We'd love to come back and talk about anything business, marketing, growth, strategy related.
Great. Well, thanks for being on the show, Jacqueline.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.